We are now live at 9:04.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the June 15th, how the year's flying by, I don't understand, but the June 15th pre-agenda meeting of the Lake Worth Commission. And everyone's in attendance, and we have everybody here. We do this a little bit differently each time, and does anybody have a burning issue they want to start with?
Would you like me to call the roll just to be official?
Sure.
Mayor Betty Resch.
Here.
Vice Mayor Christopher McFoy.
Here.
Commissioner Sarah Maliga.
Present.
Commissioner Kim Stokes.
Here.
Commissioner Reynaldo Diaz.
Here.
Good morning, everybody. So I'll ask the question again. Does anybody have any burning issues they want to bring up before we get into anything?
I have one little, well, I got a couple, but one that's probably time sensitive. Are we doing?
Why don't you start then, Chris?
Are we doing anything as the city for Juneteenth, which is right around the corner? I believe it's Sunday.
We just read a proclamation. I don't know if any community events have been organized, but we did read a proclamation. I read the proclamation at the city.
Oh, yes. Yes, I do remember now. I'm not really losing my marbles. I was a little concerned there for a minute. Yeah.
All right. We're gonna hold judgment on that one, Chris. That's
all right.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
And to answer, I'm not sure. I haven't heard of any events concerning that day holiday.
Right.
At this
The
point.
community has certainly not come to us with any
Right.
things, which would be nice if they did. Well,
Bishop Pinckney's been trying to call together a few people for various reasons, and we haven't been able to connect, but that was something that I had on the agenda of asking him if he wants to try to find people that might want to lead this on a yearly basis or like coordinate. It just didn't happen this year with COVID and a lot of other reasons.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, it'd be nice to say, I said the other night somewhere, I was talking, and my least favorite phrase now is the city should. People come, the city should, and I'm like, okay, you organize it and we will help however we can. But it can't just be we do everything. We are very helpful. We give services, we give places, but we can't always be the one to just start everything. So and out to the public, if you've got an idea, bring it to us. We'll do what we can to help it happen. So yeah, I think it's a good thing. And I think next year, Kim, thank you for bringing that up, that, maybe that'd be something that we could do a little bit more for than a proclamation, but okay, so that, and what else? I think you have something else, Chris. I'm sure you have something else.
You are accurate, Madam Mayor.
I've learned.
I thought the three things on my list that, and we don't have to start with them, but we can, is follow up for the advisory boards, a little bit on the budget, and PBSO contract. Those are my three. Oh, and there's a little one that there's something on tonight's planning and zoning board that in a project, I haven't read all the detail, but that apparently includes a, what do they call it?
I've written to William already about that. Maybe William can address that later. I wrote to him about, I got that same email, Chris, and wrote to William. I followed up, and hopefully, there's a reason for it. My guess was that they started their project before we changed it, but yeah, Carmen. Hi, Carmen.
Good
I see
morning.
your hand is raised.
Yes, I just wanted to give some information concerning Vice Mayor McFoy's two items he just mentioned. As far as the PBSO contract, I am coordinating now. Savina is helping me coordinate a meeting with Captain Bear and the other leadership within PBSO to set a meeting to start our discussions regarding the contract. So that will happen next week, either the 22nd or the 23rd. And as far as the follow-up for the advisory board interviews, Melissa and I and Savina met yesterday. And so we do have a suggested path towards coming to a a resolution as to your picks as for the advisory board. So we do have a plan and option to share with you and moving forward to the next steps. So when you're ready for that moment, I don't know if you wanted to go through each commissioner, then we set some time aside specifically for that item.
Okay, Chris, and my question to you is, you know, when we talk about the PBSO contract, it sounds like there's something specific or more.
Yeah,
less than, yeah.
well, yes, definitely. Last year, the contract came up. There was no advance discussion with us that I know of, and it just was there, and our option was to approve or vote it down. And that was not, I was extremely unhappy with how that happened. And I would be even more unhappy this year because I've had a number of things and a lot of input from residents in the community that are not happy with basically how the work is being done. And this is a contract that if we were not happy with a paver that was paving our roads and, you know, we didn't have good standards in the contract, we would ask to change the contract or do something different. So I want to make sure that we have an opportunity as commission to register what changes we would like to see in the contract, not just we're approving a budget increase. And I did notice also that PBSO is the highest paid one around of the three counties. If thrilled with the contract, with the performance, I'd say, all right, well, maybe we'll consider a raise, but we're not. And we need a procedure to address some of the concerns.
Well, my suggestion, okay, go ahead.
My two big ones are, we do not, and I've researched this with a number of other police departments and experienced people, we do not really do community policing as it's commonly understood. Simple things, having patrol cars out, if the officers are in patrol cars, tinted windows with the windows rolled up is very, very little contact with the community, and that discourages good policing. I'd like to see that changed, and in a variety of ways. And the other one is, there's been a long-standing issue of, does PBSO enforce local laws, Lake Worth local laws? And I get repeatedly residents raise concern that
What's a specific law you're talking about? What kind of local law?
Noise ordinance is the biggest one. Basically, quality of life ones are the big ones. And traffic patrol. I don't know that traffic patrol is a local ordinance, but it's local to us, the enforcement of it. So those are two areas. I have a list that I've gone over with the city manager in the past of a number of things, but those are big ones on it. And just.
Yeah, I agree with the tinted windows. One thing that I think that when I see people with tinted windows, that I want to be able to see that person can see me as I'm coming through a corner. So I completely support that tinted window thing.
Believe me, as a list, that's a big thing, but
right.
Yeah.
Mayor, Commissioner Maliga's hand is raised.
Oh, hi, Sarah. Thank you, Melissa.
Hi, I just want to piggyback on what Commissioner McVoy just said. I too have had some conversations with Carmen in regards to PBSO.
Oh God.
Whoops.
You're gone. You're gone. You're frozen. Can you, Sarah, you're gone.
We can't hear you, Sarah.
Driving does not work. Well, okay. Anybody else have any?
And that is alarming to me.
No, Sarah, we heard nothing of what you are. If you're driving, we're not hearing you. We heard nothing of what you said.
I'm not driving.
Okay, well,
can you hear me now?
We heard nothing of what you said.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, what I was stating is that there was an incident here in Southeast Street. And it was an emergency situation. And unfortunately, PBSO blamed Code to take care of some things. Code said, no, that's PBSO's responsibility. And there was a lot of pointing fingers for days with no resolution. So I had a conversation with Carmen that we need to have a sit down and iron out whose responsibilities are what in what situations, because there does seem to be a huge disconnect.
Yep, I heard very similar, the back and forth between code and PBSO, and there needs to be clarity on it, and it needs to be in writing.
Correct. And then my other concern with PBSO is part of our contract states that they will cover a certain amount of street closures, parades. And one of the ones that the city pays for is for the Finish Festival, which is a for-profit event that's not even city-based any longer. And Compass, who is one of our community partners, is spending $9,000 to $10,000 every Pride for PBSO coverage. So I would like to see at least one day of Pride covered for Compass, so they don't have to spend that money, because it is a fundraiser for a nonprofit.
Right.
So we should maybe look at what we're covering, is what you're saying.
Yep.
Okay.
That's a good idea.
Okay.
I also, something that,
Hi, Kim.
hi, I'm sorry, I have an eye infection, so I'm staying
Oh.
off camera because it's not pretty.
I think an eye patch would be kind of, jazzy.
I joked about that, and my daughter went and cut, like, those red noses from Walgreens.
Yeah.
She went and cut one in half and like
Oh
made
no.
an eye patch, and I'm like, I can't put that on my eye. But I loved it. It was so cute.
Well, I just found out this morning my assistant's daughter has COVID, so my office is now like, we don't, where do we go in? Do we stay out? What do we do?
Yeah.
Is that Natalie?
What?
No, that's not Natalie. That's your sister-in-law daughter.
That's my sister. That's my niece-in-law. No, Nikki. Nick, my ever trusted, the base of my law firm. Who
Well,
knows what to do?
Yeah.
one thing that I've been talking with our city manager about here and there, but want to dig into more is how we're handling our interactions with our unhoused population. So I think that needs a lot more clarity, and there are other options besides policing that we can use. So I think now, I just think this is a good time for us to really, look at all of our public safety needs and our quality of life needs, and try to make sure that we have work towards a more comprehensive plan, and that we're getting the coverage we need.
Okay, and that's a big issue. Do you have suggestions about the unhoused population? I mean, there will never not be an unhoused population. Society is not,
Right.
but
I talked to Diane Stanley. I haven't had a chance to talk to her recently. It's another meeting I'm hoping to set up with the city manager and myself.
and she's from
The Lord's Place,
Yeah.
and they offer services. There's a lot of other community partners that can do street engagement teams, people who've lived on the street, who've been there before, that the people who are haven't had successful experiences with law enforcement, the criminal justice system, are more willing to open up and accept help from. So there are other options. There are people that are doing this work that we can contract with to try to see some different results.
And I think we should include the SO on those conversations.
What's that?
I think perhaps, to engage the sheriff's office with some of those conversations, because that's where I think some of the complaints are coming from.
And one other thing on regards to that, we do have a victims advocate, and that victims advocate, Lourdes, was funded through a grant, and Captain Bear was telling me that grant is running out. I would like to see part of our contract include keeping her as our victim advocate for the city of Lakewood Beach.
I've never met her. What is she?
She's a victim advocate. So when there's any kind of crime, burglary, robbery to person, sex crime, she shows up at the scene and helps the victim find all the resources that they need.
Okay, I would like to know more about that, because the county also has, and as a matter of fact, that's something I want to talk about, is victim services. The county has all of that. I mean, when there's mostly sexual assault, murder, serious domestic abuse, I mean, there are counselors that get called out with the police at the same time. I don't know if you know that.
Yeah, I do, but she's actually right here in the district, and she's boots on the ground. She's also Latin. She's Latina woman. So she speaks and she's got a very good connection to our Guatemalan community, which, unfortunately are the ones who are normally victimized and don't feel comfortable coming forward. So she's worked really hard over the past 3 or almost 4 years now, building that relationship for the trust factor. But I'll make sure that Sylvina gets you her information. I met with her.
Yeah, I mean,
about
I've
2
never
months
heard
ago.
of this. I never want, this should be something that we should get out if that's something. I mean, Daniel Morgan, does he have a connection with her? I wonder.
Yes, she was working closely with the GMC, which
Well,
he used to work for.
right, but and I hear, from other people in the community that the Guatemalan My Center is wonderful, but there's not everything to everybody in the Guatemalan community. There's some rift or something going on, but
Okay, well, I will have Sylvina give everybody her information.
yeah, I'd
I
like to
believe-
talk to her, find
I
out. I'd
believe
like to know about that. Yeah.
I believe I passed it on 2 months ago when I did meet with her. I sent everybody an email, but she's more than happy to come to City Hall and go over everything that she does.
Maybe she should come and do a little presentation at the city commission meeting so everybody knows about it.
Are you guys all good with that?
That's a good idea. I know of, if it's the same person, I think she started when in the height of some of the opioid stuff, and that she was involved with the Suboxone stuff, that when people were brought into JFK, she would help try to get them on. If it's the same person, it might not be, and that was a while back. But
Well, and that's a good point, Chris, because there is funding coming through from the big pharma lawsuits to each county and each state. And even if we have to try to find funding from that department to help the displaced and, the addicted population with a victim advocate.
Also, with similar to that, we had the recovery listening session yesterday for people who are really involved in the recovery community. Something a lot of the advocates have been asking for and meeting resistance about is for the police officers to carry Narcan. So I don't know if that's something that we can also bring up. If they're the first on the scene and it's easy enough to use, it's a life-saving.
And I've heard that they're resistant. I don't know whether it's liability reasons or what, but it seems like there's such a timing aspect to that's my understanding too, is it's not very hard to use. So yeah, I'd like to see that raised as well.
We do have a really good local group, Rebel Recovery, that that passes out Narcan, and I've learned a lot from people involved in that group on its use and how to best use it. And I feel like you're right, Christopher. There is a really very much a timing aspect to it, and I think a big push in that movement is to make sure people in the community, members of the community, have Narcan, which is apparently it's free to get.
What, Chris?
I think you're trying to say something, but you might be breaking up there, Christopher.
Oh, I just said that, and I don't know quite how I have them, but I have 2 boxes of them, one in the house, one in the car. Probably ought to put one on the bike, but yeah, and there's a firefighter down in maybe as far south as Broward who advocates strongly for exactly what you were mentioning, Ronaldo, of getting the community educated how to use it and make it available so that the timing can happen.
So I'd like to understand if the community is capable of doing this. I think his name is Louis.
Louis Garcia.
Yeah.
Yep.
Why our police officers can't do it? And this is being something, they're being called, they're on the scene. It's part of their public service. So it just seems odd to push this onto community members when our law enforcement officers aren't willing to do this.
I think that's probably a decision from the sheriff, from high above, not our local guys.
Right. So we just keep pushing, though. We keep saying this is something the community wants.
It's important.
And
I think we have to always, as a commission, remember that most of our departments report directly to us. This department, if you want to call it a department, does not. It's our most expensive department by far, and it's a contract. And we need to, make sure that we are getting that there are good performance measures in the contract, that it does what we want it to do, and that the contract says what we want it to do, and that in fact, what we want it to happen, in fact, does happen. And, you know, it's not like we're contracting for $100,000 for somebody to wipe the windows. It's a different kind of deal.
All right.
Madam
yeah.
Mayor?
Yeah.
If I can say, I know we only have an hour
Mhm.
and we really need to, Melissa and I would like to get your feedback on our suggested path toward the next steps on the board advisory. So if we can get to that, we're waiting patiently, but I just want to be mindful of the time so we can get that in.
All right, yeah,
But
it's
I do want,
half-past.
right, and I do want to respond to the PBSO contract. Yes, I have spoken to most of you concerning your thoughts that we discussed today concerning the PBSO contract. And as well noted, the first meeting that I plan on having with the PBSO leadership is to discuss these concerns and work through reshaping the contract to incorporate what we can into the contract. So this is our first initial discussion, opening up the negotiations for the contract. Certainly you'll be kept in a loop in every step of the way, and you will be apprised of our progress prior to this coming to you for your vote. So please be assured that that will occur. And so I will continue to, I welcome your feedback so that it'll guide me through my discussions with Captain Bear and leadership, and we'll move forward with that. So, but I appreciate this discussion because it helps me in our starting point. So I wanted to assure you of that you'll be updated through that process.
Thank you.
Thank you. I also really like the idea one of you brought up about having Lourdes, I think you did, Mayor Resch, about having Lourdes do a presentation to the city.
Yeah.
I think that's a really, really great idea as well to get her on the schedule, because I would love to hear more about her perspective, especially
Right.
as we go into more budget workshops to see, you know, what it is that she needs to be more effective.
Yeah, and I think it's good for, I mean, I had no idea that existed, so I think a lot of people probably don't.
I already sent Sylvina an email to ask Captain Bear to get a presentation scheduled.
Thank you.
Okay, Carmen, did you have anything else? You were going to talk about the agenda, the advisory boards?
Yeah, thank you.
On the advisory boards, I would
Well, let's
just
hear
like,
what Carmen has to say. Let's let Carmen speak for a minute, Chris.
well, I think yes, that's important, but I think let's put out one thought on it of the way that we used to do it, which doesn't mean that it's perfect by any means, but one of the things we did in terms of voting, we did it with just little pieces of paper, the city clerk there. We each wrote on it, folded them up, gave them to the city clerk. She counted them. And if we needed to revote because we didn't have a majority or whatever it was that we needed to do, we had a mechanism for redoing that.
Like first, second, and third choices, that sort of thing, alternate. Yeah, I think that's a good idea. Yeah. Carmen?
Well, Vice Mayor McVoy, you just took the words out of our mouths.
Right.
So
And that's how we do stuff.
the process,
I think.
what we wanted to suggest, at least get a starting point on this discussion and get your feedback and see what do you think about it, is similar to that. As you know, we had a number of participants in each of the advisory board groups. And so our suggestion is that you had that score sheet. So remember at the interview process, for instance, if you had the PZB board, you had a list of people who applied, those people who were interviewed. And so what we're asking is that you write down your number of people you would like to see on the board. For instance, if a board is a 9-member board, 5 seats are available, and you interviewed 7 people, then pick the 5 people that you would like to see on that board. And then what we will do, we'll collect your responses. We will tally the results and find areas where there's consensus. We will, of course, submit the results of that. If there's no consensus, then we'll narrow it down by having a deeper discussion on how you come to consensus, because your rankings may not be the same in some categories.
Sure.
And what about the people that oh, I don't know if anybody got this email. I got an email from Matt Considine asking to be removed from consideration. And I wrote him back and I said, could you think about it? But I haven't heard back from him on that.
Right. So Melissa, did you have any addition to that?
Well, I
Yeah.
can share my screen because I revised the ballot a little bit to add a little bit more information if you'd like
Okay,
to
well,
see it.
I was asking about the people that missed the interview. When are we gonna do the second interviews? I think the ballot,
Yes, that's the
let's
other
not use
part.
time for that, Melissa, today, if as a, you can send it to all of us for our comments, I guess, because we are, okay,
Yeah,
thanks.
so Madam Mayor, to that point, thank you. So that next point is you did have a number of people who could not attend due to unforeseen circumstances. So we estimate there are about 3 people. And so we do need to have an interview for them. Our suggestion is to have a special meeting prior to the June 21st meeting. The meeting starts at 6, the regular meeting. We suggest start at 5:30. We only have 3 people, which should take about 15 minutes. And we can get those 3 in. And then we'll talk about the deadline for you to bring in, submit your tally sheets to us. And if you have a timeline that you would like to follow for us to be able to have final results so you can get to a point of voting. I'm sorry, to determining who the members are.
Right. Thank you.
A quick question. I'm okay with the early pre-meeting to address it before the 21st. That's fine. A question, how do we decide who can interview at that meeting? If it's somebody that just didn't show up on Saturday because they didn't show up, are they allowed to come? I'm seeing a no.
That's right. No, sir. These are only for people that we knew ahead of time that they could not attend that meeting. If you had not notified us prior to the interview date, then you would not qualify for an interview during this time. We will consider them no-shows.
Yeah, I don't want to be unpleasant, but
Oh, good.
seem to be fair. It should
But
be
you're gonna
fair.
be.
Have to allow people to apply.
I'm
Okay,
sorry, I apologize, Chris. What did you say? I'm sorry.
No, I just thought that, suppose somebody wakes up and says, oh, I think I'll apply on the 21st. That doesn't seem reasonable. And so it sounds like the procedure took care of that, and I'm glad to hear it.
Oh, good. Thank you. I have a couple of things I'd like to just talk about. We all discovered a couple of weeks ago, why it was a couple of weeks ago, I don't know, that we each have apparently a $10,000 discretionary fund. Who knew? Nobody told us at the beginning. And we have to spend it, by the end of the fiscal year in order to get it renewed, I guess. And I have a suggestion for some of us to use some of that money. The library, I don't know if you've been into the new big, what used to be the children's room, the sort of meeting room, and you go up a stair, there's a little alcove. And the librarian wants to make that space a little more useful for venue, for events and stuff. So what she wants to do is put in kind of a little tiny kitchen in that alcove with a bar that they can roll out so they can actually have events there. She has gotten some estimates of cost and she has found that it's going to be about $10,000 to set it up the way she feels it needs to be set up. I'm going to ask that we each contribute $2,000 of our $10,000 fund to fully fund it. And we can, get a little plaque donated by the commission and our names and stuff. I just think that, the library they've suffered a lot in stuff they haven't gotten. And that's something I would ask us to do. So I'm asking you to do that.
Well, first question is, how big is the plaque?
And your name will be the largest name on the plaque, Christopher. And Christopher McFoy, wait, I have something to say. We can do that. We can do that. We love you, Chris. We love you. I kid. I think it would be a nice little gesture for us to do. We have, there's other things we can use the money for, but it's kind of a big deal to let us do that. So I'd like some feedback. Silence.
Yeah, I agree with you that the library needs all the help it can get, that it's had such a lot of good energy put into it in the last couple of years. I'd probably want to know a little bit more of the detail. I do see a lot of potential for that. If it's the same room I'm thinking of where the Mad Hatter literacy gathering was had recently.
That big room where we had our interviews when we invited, there's like a step up before you get into the library, and it's just a really nice, I mean, alcove. Meet with Cindy. I mean,
Yeah.
I've suggested it to her. And I mean, I want us to do that if we could possibly do that. Anybody have any, other than Chris, have any ideas about it? Really?
I mean, I like the idea. I would like to talk to. I think we talked about this a while ago about pulling money together to help the library, because whether it's our discretionary fund or whether it's the budget itself, I feel like the library is such a priority to help improve it and make it competitive. I don't know. I don't like to use that word, but make it competitive with neighboring libraries and the services that it can offer. And I think we had talked about specifically just asking Cindy and see what exactly.
Well, that's something she's asked for. I mean, when I toured the library, and if you haven't been up to the 3rd floor of the Florida room, you should go.
Yeah, the Florida room's awesome.
Yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah.
So, I mean, all right. So, I mean, I'm a little disappointed that I'm not having more feedback from it. Honestly, I got to tell you, I think we can, talk is cheap, but we got to help these folks. And that would also bring another venue for people to use in the city, which we have a shortage of.
Betty, I totally support the library. I just think I want to make sure we have clarity around what the purposes of these discretionary funds. Like during our budget process have the ability to set aside $10,000 somewhere in the budget to fund things that are important to the library. So it's just, for me, it's more of a technical thing. Like I've been talking to Carmen about mine. There's lots of areas where we don't have the staff to be able to get us certain research or do information. And I've been viewing that money for myself as a tool to help me do my job better. But I definitely support the library. And for this year, I'm willing to give the $2,000, but I don't want to set up a trend of like, us trying to use this money to fill gaps in our budget.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And it shouldn't be used for that because it is kind of an odd, we have this little pocket of money that we can use, but this is not operating. It's not staff. It's something that probably won't happen if we don't have some sort of fundraiser. And we just, they've done so much work on the library. It'd be kind of the icing on the cake to let them have that last piece. So I appreciate that. And I agree with you.
I have a question. Is this part of the additional request that Cindy had sent over?
I don't know.
She sent over an email about a month and a half ago that had a list on it, and it was, I think, almost $11,000.
It sounds very similar to that. I believe it is.
Okay.
And it's in the supplemental request in the budget, in the upcoming budget.
I do love the library. I love everything that Cindy does. I, along with Kim, have been trying to use the discretionary funds for things and organizations that do the work but need partnership with us. I don't know, why aren't we looking at possibly with a replenishment of the ARPA funds to take care of this?
Madam Mayor?
I just thought it was a nice little thing to do for the library. It's $2,000.
Okay, I hear you. I mean, I just know that, we just donate, I don't know how much money I have left because I have given money to other organizations to help, get their foot in the door places. I guess we would need to I need to know what's left in mine before I can commit to the 2,000, which would be an easy ask of Carmen.
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Yep.
Let us look. I'll work with Bruce and see if there's some fundings that we can find for it. Let me look into it.
Okay, I just thought it would be nice for us to do it as a gift, but that's it.
But this is you as a gift, regardless of your discretionary fund or the funds. You're certainly supporting this, and I hear that you all are in general support of the library and making sure that their needs are met and expanding their opportunities to service the community. So we'll work to help in that effort on your behalf.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I went to I was kind of excited to go yesterday to this domestic abuse conference at, local Palm Beach County domestic abuse. domestic violence thing, and it was about 85 people there. And I have to say, I was so disappointed. It was just the different groups, talking, the DCF, ChildNet, all these different groups that I have clients that I work with, and it was like pat each other on the back. We're doing great. Here's our program up on a piece of paper, but I know how that works. So I was a little frustrated by it. They were talking about protocols, developing protocols for victim services when something happens. I'm like, I was victim sexual assault counselor in 1982. We had protocols. It was more frustrating. I was kind of hoping to go and see how the city could join in, and Richard was there from the Palm Beach County League, but it was not what I'd hoped, and I was a little disappointed in that.
Thank you for your expertise and involvement in that, and for, because I think all of us care about it, but I certainly don't have expertise in that at all.
Yeah, I've been working since the 70s with domestic abuse and sexual assault, and I have clients, the DCF clients, and the system is so broken. And the turnaround, this is the thing that makes it especially hard when I have like a dependency case. New DCF workers that are hired out of college or, last less than a year. I have a client who's been under DCF supervision for 2 years. He's had no less than 7 workers. So it's the telephone game. He did this, he didn't do that. He did this. It's a disaster. So, but
Madam Mayor, I have to agree with you. As a foster parent, it is exhausting. I think in 28 months, Dawn and I had 19 caseworkers.
Yeah, no, it's
Some
insane.
of them lasted less than 30 days.
Yeah, they don't train them well. They have some kid coming out of college now. I'm a DCF investigator, with very little training, very little backup, very little programs. In the 80s when I did it, we at least had some like group homes to go to. Now I think those don't even exist. So I just want to say, and it is something that I have, passion for, and I would at some point like the city to somehow have some, boy, is that vague, input into how things work, because it's an ongoing problem, and it's an ongoing problem. And I've been approached by a couple different communities about what a problem it is, and the reporting is a problem because it's such a male-dominated society that they can't come forward, or they're afraid to come forward because this is the classic question. Well, I go forward, I complain about what happens. There's nothing for me to do when I go back to get beat up worse because I reported it. Yeah. So it's a thing. So I also got a phone, just real quick. I got a phone call from Senator David Silver's office the other day about there's money coming through, and I contacted Carmen about this. There's some extra money coming through, some leftover $126 million they found out they didn't need. So there are deadlines. And Carmen, I got an email today from Richard Pinsky about the deadlines and stuff. So hopefully there's some almost ready to be submitted applications from either Brian or William or Ed or Jamie or somebody.
We have projects ready in the writing, so.
Great, thank you. I was excited at least to hear some good news. Anybody else?
Yeah, I have 2 things to bring up.
Okay.
Speaking of money, I guess we could start with that. I drafted a letter and sent it to Carmen in support of a general obligation bond that's about to be decided. So it's a general obligation bond, GO bond, that is designed for environmental and water projects, mostly for the Lake Worth Lagoon and Loxahatchee River. And on the 21st, the county commission is going to vote on whether or not it's going to go to referendum.
So it's a county GO bond. It's
a county GO bond. Just to be, county GO bond. And some details about it. The county, the Environmental Resources Management, they identified 5 priority areas that this bond can fund. Infrastructure for septic to sewer conversion, for example, is the top priority. Stormwater quality projects are on there, and also climate resilience. As an example, Deb Drum, who's the director of Environmental Resources Management, she has sent out an email to staff of different cities to provide potential examples of what can be funded. Now, it's not these aren't applications because obviously without the bond yet, the application process hasn't started. But luckily our staff responded and brought up an example. For example, on North 18th Street in College Park, there could be some shoreline work being done there for flood protection and so on, environment and whatnot. So there's a number of things that can be applied for. When the application process does come up, we stand a pretty good chance. There's a number of criteria. There's a points system, basically prioritizing projects and who gets the money and for what. And it's a very nominal ask. It's average taxpayer is going to pay something like $10 per year, and it's going to provide about $130 million in projects over a few years. And it's not going to be a new tax because there is a bond that's rolling out pretty much at the time that this would start. So it would pretty much be, a replacement of that $10.
When is the vote?
What's that?
When is the vote on it?
So the deadline I think is like August something. That's why they're voting on it on the 21st. The deadline to get it to the SOE is like August to make it onto the goal is the November ballot.
So are you suggesting that we should either as a individually or as a board send some sort of a letter to the county commission of support?
So I had drafted a letter that that we could all sign and we can send to the county commissioners. We can kind of decide on how, we want to do that, but we don't need like a referendum or anything like that.
But I think it would be good to maybe put on our website or something that if we all agree that we support it, which
Amen.
that perhaps we should put that on our website, get it on Facebook for people to support it, to contact your county commissioner to support it.
I love that idea. Yeah.
We should get a clarification. I know that the county probably can't lobby in behalf of it. Glenn could speak up whether cities can. I would assume we can, but I don't want to do something that we can't.
Yeah, we're also restricted. I was waiting for an opening to say that the wonderful legislature passed another muzzling law, muzzling local governments from spending money on referendum issues. I'll get a copy of that to all of you so you can see exactly.
So we can't do anything?
No advocacy at all, and there's even restrictions on factual information. So that's why I call it muzzling. I mean,
yeah.
I've had these cases, I've litigated these cases all the way back to the days of the Children's Service Council and Health Care Act, and you could advocate, or you could at least inform, you could provide information, but they've really restricted what local governments can do. So I'll get a copy of that out to all of you, this week.
Is that being challenged by anybody, Glenn?
I don't know. I'll look into that too. I wondered that too. I thought somebody would challenge that on First Amendment grounds. But I don't know. I mean, they passed so many bad laws that how many challenges can be filed.
Well, and a lot of them aren't even being held up by his own court, but
yeah,
it makes things very confusing and for everybody.
I will point out that other municipalities have submitted letters, encouraging the commissioners to vote for this referendum because
that we can do.
Yeah,
we can express our opinion to our local county commissioners. It's just advocating to the public where they.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Oh, all right.
Like putting it on the website and stuff is.
Yeah, we can't have a call to action. Basically.
Got it.
Right.
But we can't even. You're saying even informational might not be allowed. Like we might not even be able to put information on our website about this is the bond. This is how much it will cost. I have a copy of that law with me. So let me get a copy of that law circulated, and then we can all talk about it. Once we've all looked, I looked at it when it came out a month or so ago, but I just remember it was a big red flag that, oh my gosh, local governments are now being, and muzzled is the only word I can think of.
Yeah.
Another reference to muzzle.
Yeah, I think because if you put out even this is how you contact your county commissioners, it could be construed as a call to action lobbying. This is it's an important bond because it could provide quite a lot of money for these projects, infrastructure especially, and even like our shoreline projects, which we're proud of, and we have, you know, so much of it in Lake Worth compared to the rest of the Lake Worth Lagoon. But it's, and I learned an interesting fact the other day. You know, my nonprofit, we maintain Jewel Steinhardt Cove for the county as adopters, and just to put maybe a little bit of perspective on how far this money can go, especially when is involved, environmental resources management. Jewel Steinhardt Cove was built, that's 11 acres of habitat that was built for less than 400,000, which is quite a bargain, and, you know, provides quite a lot in terms of water quality improvement and providing a healthy place, and a tourism draw. You know, a lot of people paddle the area. So yeah, thank you. I would definitely want to get that letter out.
And what was your other, you had said you have two things, Ronaldo?
Yeah, and the second thing, and you know, I don't know what I'm kind of wondering what everyone's thoughts are on this, but and I would like to see you know, have a conversation with PBSO and Captain Bear, but I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to like the missing persons list. And when you look at a very specific demographic, young teenagers and, you know, Central American and kids of immigrants, a very large majority of the missing kids list is from Lake Worth Beach. I mean, we're talking about, like, I think last time I checked was out of 30, like 20 of them were from Lake Worth Beach, and something around those numbers. And I'm not 100% sure what the next steps are, but I would love to hear thoughts, and if anyone has had that conversation, because it seems more than just a coincidence.
I actually had that conversation with Captain Bear last week at the coffee with deputies, and with him and Lieutenant Lavigna, and told him that I was quite concerned. He said, what you don't see is how many we've recovered, and that the majority of them have been runaways.
Right, that's
And
really,
he said that we've seen a spike in the runaways because school is out. I asked, obviously, if DCF was contacted and the house was inspected, and he did say that there's a thorough investigation done when these children do go missing, to make sure that there's nothing suspicious that needs to be, you know, investigated further. But he said most of them we do recover, and he said that during the summertime we're going to see a spike because kids are bored, they challenge their parents, they don't want to have to be locked in the house. And he goes, it's mostly teenagers. Because my first fear was, you know, victims being trafficked. And him and Lieutenant Lavigna tried to, you know, put my mind at ease and said, no, you know, you're just seeing it more because we're putting it out on social media more.
But that's still, I thank you so much, Commissioner Malega, for digging into that more. And thank you, Diaz, for bringing that up. But whenever we see a problem and it's not the problem we thought it was, but it's a different problem, does it make me think, okay, we can like not keep our eye on this anymore? Like, what is driving this population to want to run away? You know, like is there some other cause? Because if this is a spike that's happening in our community within a certain population, I don't know the answer right now. This is the first time I'm hearing about this, but so just thank you for bringing this to our attention, because I think it's worth. And again, it's like, so is it no longer a police matter? So, you know, they recovered the kid and then now it gets kind of lost in the shuffle. Like the mayor has said before, our systems aren't perfect. So I think it's worth maybe some more conversations of what the follow-up is, and get
what our role is, you know, what role does the city play in that event?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think our job is to understand the needs of our community so that we know when we're deciding how to spend our money and who to partner with, we know what our needs are, so we can find other agencies or other support systems. Is there other group that can help us? But we have to know what the issues are first, right? Before we can identify who might be able to help us with them.
And I know the sheriff's office, or I believe the sheriff's office at this place I was at yesterday, there were quite a few sheriff's office with Stop Human, you know, that there's a whole part of the sheriff's office that's dealing with human trafficking, which I was, you know, glad to hear as well. They're not ignoring it. And I think we have somebody like that in our community. I'm not sure.
Yeah, and if that, it's definitely something to keep an eye on and keep talking about. Thank you, Commissioner Malega, for that update. And if that's the case, I have noticed recently, especially the summer like rec opportunities that we're providing in terms of like, things as simple as like a sports league often, is good to keep teenagers especially from
Well,
being
it's
too
funny because
bored.
most of the sports leagues are geared towards boys.
Yeah, so
And it's
maybe
the
we
girls that are running away.
maybe we can fill in that void somehow. Yeah.
Maybe it's not sports, but something. And I know we just have a police athletic league starting in the city. Hopefully that will have some sort of impact. Okay, it is now 5. We've got 5 more minutes.
I actually follow up, excuse me, to the advisory boards.
Yeah.
So we now know we're going to have a special meeting 5:30 Tuesday to interview the last 3 applicants with extenuating circumstances. What we didn't discuss is when the decision will be made, if you want to
Right.
do it as a special meeting or do it on unfinished business at a regular meeting.
Okay, the 21st, where is that? That's going to be at the Casino Ballroom?
Yes,
Okay. And it's really, we're doing that because of the second reading.
correct.
So 5:30 on the 21st, where will we be at? Will we have those interviews at the casino?
Yes, Madam Mayor.
Okay. And then the meeting after that is what, July 1st? July
5th, the day after 4th of July.
The day after July 4th? All right.
Independence Day, yes.
Independence Day. So, and we're gonna have that, so that's just gonna be at the chambers. Why don't we do the voting then? Because I'm gonna be out. So the 7th is my surgery. So after the 7th, I'm sort of really checked out for a couple of weeks.
So would you
Amazing.
prefer a special meeting or just have it on unfinished business and we can try to keep that agenda on the lighter side?
On the 5th?
Correct.
What's your thoughts, guys? I'd like to do it before I go away, before I go into the world of pharmaceutical drugs. Guys, hello?
Yeah,
Oh, go ahead, Kim.
I was just looking at the calendar, like, I don't know. I think that's the latest we want to do it. And I was just looking, is there an opportunity to try to squeeze it in earlier? And I just don't know that there is with how complicated our schedules are.
The only other time would be the utilities meeting on the 28th.
And that has a lot on it. That's going to be a long meeting, Madam Mayor.
Like, no, but we could do a meeting ahead of that, like a 5 to 6 time slot before that, if we thought.
That's fine. I don't care. That's fine.
That's fine with me.
On the 28th.
8th.
Yep, that's good with me.
Do you think an hour would be enough time?
You're
the
gonna
vote?
pull us all ahead of time? Is that part of the thing?
Yes.
To like try to help narrow it down? I'm still a little unsure of like the people who we thought, like if I thought that there might be somebody who applied for one board, but we think they're better for the other board, like, are we just writing them in on different boards without the discussion? And then I guess we'll just.
Yeah,
Have to
so
see.
you'll have your tally sheet and you can do a write-in, because there were a number of people said they're interested in other boards. And if you find someone you like to consider in a particular board, you can do a write-in.
Why don't we do it at 5 o'clock? Because the way we tend to chit chat, it's gonna.
Yeah.
Let's do it 5 o'clock on the 28th, the 28th.
28th.
I don't know what day it is anymore. Okay, let's do that because that gives us time. Otherwise, a half an hour, we're gonna feel rushed and we do have a prattle on.
And if I could, let me just give you a quick update. I know there was conversation with the Business Advisory Board, which isn't part of this, selection process yet, but I do have a draft done and I'll be sending that to Carmen today and we'll talk through that and then hopefully have it on one of your agendas in July.
Well,
July
not the,
11th.
yeah,
Right, not right away. And I know
The-
your plates are packed, but I just want to let you know we didn't forget that. The ordinance is drafted. Carmen and I will hopefully talk about it today or tomorrow, and then tweak it and we can get it out for everybody's comments.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Okay.
My only other one real quickly is on the budget. I think, as I mentioned earlier, and probably all of us are aware, it's going to be challenging to figure out how do we, if we want to redirect it all, how do we do that? Because there's not much extra. I would like to encourage us to have available as clearly as possible information. So I tend to like visual ones, pie charts, things that are easy for us and for the community to get a sense of where our resources are now, where we might want to readjust a little bit of redirecting, because as far as I can see, it's mostly going to be redirecting because we don't have much spare. And that's a difficult process for any group to do. So let's have as much in the way of simple, clear overview tools available as possible, if others agree.
Well, Madam Mayor, I just want to remind you, I think you all have recently scheduled individual meetings to go over your budget questions, concerns as we move forward in that process. It's fast approaching that we'll have our first budget meeting, well, our second budget meeting. So we wanted to get some input, feedback. So I appreciate you, Vice Mayor, for bringing that up and reminding me to remind you that we are meeting with you. And so those thoughts that you mentioned are helpful.
Yeah, and as much in tagging on to that, as much information, as many questions as we can ask as we're having these individual sessions, not to bring the same questions up in public. If you know the answer to the question, don't ask the question, you know, it's gonna get long, excuse me. Susie, it's okay. We like, okay. So, you know, sometimes we ask questions in public that we could easily get the information for quietly and not make the meetings quite as long as they otherwise are. So I'm just encouraging us all to get as much information in private as we can. And do our, you know, for me, it's like doing my homework before I meet, because I've got to have, it's like doing my math homework, you know, it's always my favorite pastime.
And you all math homework, right?
It's math
Of course. Yes, I
Tim
look
is
forward to yeah, I look forward
happy.
to the private meetings so that
Yeah.
it might an hour of back and forth questions that the public doesn't need to really witness all of my thoughts, but there might be things that surface in that meeting. I do think it's important for the public to be aware of. So
Yeah.
I agree with you using them
Some
to help
discretion.
pick up, right? So that the public doesn't have a witness 20 hours of us all trying to get a handle on everything. But I do want to make sure we're staying as considerate to the public for what we feel is important for them to know.
Yeah, there's a,
At
we're
the
all,
same,
you know, the other thing is we're all very accessible to folks when they have questions. I mean, I get emails all the time. What about this? What about that? I answer them as best as I can. So we now have no minutes. It's 10:03. Thank you, everybody. See you soon, I guess. When's our next meeting?
Tuesday,
I guess, to
June
21st.
21st.
Wow.
5
I'll miss
o'clock,
you all.
Is it
5:30, special meeting will be added to your calendars.
5:30 or,
To interview the three
Advisory board.
remaining
oh,
people
okay.
for
and
the
then we'll
advisory
vote on-
boards at the casino.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
All
Thank you. Have a great day.